Okay, so talking a little bit more about identity categories and invisible identities in academia, Lawless makes the argument that visible categories trump invisible categories, meaning the visible categories of sex, the visible categories of um, race, right? Those visible categories will trump the invisible categories. They become more important in academia. So we talk more about sex, feminism, right, and race, critical race theory, than we talk about with respect to invisible categories such as class. And one of the reasons why this is argued is that class can be more easily performed, altered, or fake than these other categories. Now don't say these other categories can't be performed, altered, or faked. As we see Rachel Dolezal, who was the woman who was the head of the NAACP in Spokane, Washington. However, she was born as a European American to a European American mother and father. But over time, she adopted the identity of an African American and changed her appearance somewhat so that she would look more African American. So obviously, you can, in fact, alter those identities. You can have a sex change operation to change your sexuality as well. So there are ways you can do that, but it's more easy to fake class. All you need to do is put on, a more expensive outfit than you would normally wear and adopt certain behaviors and so forth, and you can perform or fake class. Her argument is that class is more invisible than whiteness. Now, you're going to see a lot of the discourse about whiteness is how whiteness is perceived as invisible because the majority does not sees it as the norm, and they see things that fall off of the norms as visible. So, as you're walking down the street, and there are and you're European American, and there are a lot of other European Americans on the street and so forth, and somebody says, "Hey, wait, which one's Bob?" And you say, "Bob's the one in the red shirt," right? If Bob is another European American. If you're walking down the street and there's a lot of European Americans and your friend says, "Hey, where's Bob?" Oh, wait, who's Bob? You told me about Bob. And you go, "Oh, he's the black guy," if he's African American. So in that sense that whiteness is seen as invisible in culture, as not cultured, as invisible. So, and the argument is that class actually even becomes more invisible than whiteness. Finally, whites versus all marginalized groups. So it makes it difficult to conceptualize a marginalized white person, meaning that all of this discourse about whiteness, all of this discourse about white privilege is so predominant, and it's seen as that white privilege and whiteness against all other marginalized groups. And we can even say women fall into this, right? Gender is an issue with respect to this. So in a sense, Lawless could make the argument it's actually white males versus all other marginalized groups. But as again, the problem with having that white against everything else perspectives is that it makes it difficult to conceptualize that there might be marginalized white people. And as I said, from Lawless's background of growing up as a lower class white American, that she felt marginalized and that perspective was marginalized, but it's hard for anybody to really consider her marginalized, again, because of all of these predominant discourse of whiteness and white privilege. Now, I want to draw your attention to one thing in particular right now when we talk about with our connection at this moment with regards to the recent terrorist attacks in France. The terrorist attacks in France were carried, ISIS has claimed responsibility, and it does look as though ISIS was involved. And you have one group of people who say, you know, that we are now in a war with Islam. We are in a war with Islam, right? That it's us against Islam. You have one group of people who follow Islam who say that's not Islam, right? And they're making this, and there's a large push, artists, musicians, philosophers, and so forth, to follow Islam, saying, that's not Islam, right? I'm not like that. Now, one side saying we're at war with Islam, the other saying that's not Islam, right? They both end up in a centralized place in the sense of Islam. If we don't look at these issues intersectionally, right, the one side says we're at war with Islam, they can be justified in saying we're at war with Islam. The other side saying that's not Islam, they can be justified in saying that's not Islam. Obviously, we can never meet in the middle. An intersectional approach is much more useful in the sense of saying, okay, Islam is definitely at play here. It is one of the issues that is intersecting. But what are the other issues that are intersecting that will distinguish that person who believes that they're following Islam means that they have to participate in jihad? How is that different than the other individual who says they're following Islam means that they promote peace amongst all peoples? We can see that through looking at things more intersectionally. So intersectional research is important because it lets us see finer distinctions. An intersectional approach can help us understand that not all European Americans are the same. Not all European Americans have experienced the same access to privilege that others have. And that we need to be able to be more thoughtful and more complex in our understanding of difference. Thank you and have a great day.